Mary, what do you want to do at the weekend, when Carlos comes?
Well, Eric, I must go shopping on Saturday morning.
He hates shopping. But we could go to the museum and then meet you for lunch.
Fine. What shall we do in the afternoon?
There's a good football match on. Carlos will like that.
OK. Do you want to eat at home in the evening?
What about going to a restaurant? We haven't been to that Italian one for months.
Or we could try that new Chinese one.
OK, let's do that. Now, what about Sunday?
If we get up early on Sunday, we could go for a drive in the countryside.
Yes. And we could have lunch in a pub somewhere.
Yes. The one near the river's nice. Shall we go to the cinema after lunch?
We can't. His train's at 4 o'clock, and I'll have to take him back to the station.
Trina, you're 15 and you've just come back from America where you've been making records. What was it like?
It was wonderful. I had the 6-week school summer holidays and, went over there for a month and then started school again.
What did your classmates at school think?
I just told close friends what I was doing in the States. And I thought, well, if the records were successful, then I'd tell everyone.
And they were successful.
Right. And my friends were very good about it. Not envious or anything.
Did you like being in the USA?
Oh, yes. Most of the time it was great. The people are so friendly.
Did you manage to write any songs there?
Well, yeah, I did. Most of the stuff I'd done in England had been about the people closest to me. Mum, Dad, my sister. They weren't with me in the States. And although I missed them, and silly things like the rain in England and fish and chips, being surrounded with new faces gave me lots of material for my songs.
Now, your home in England is a long way from London.
Yes, about as far as you can get.
So, is it easy to get into the music business if you live that far away? Don't you have to be in London or near a big city at least?
No. We did play in London once, but we were actually approached at a local concert, so I don't think it's impossible to get noticed anywhere. There are lots of record companies looking for bands, and they do go quite a long way from the cities to find them. I was lucky with my band. And there have been other bands like us that have been lucky as well, so you don't have to come from a huge city to be discovered.
Now, in the USA, you did a song with someone who was a star when I was your age, David Pearson, and you hadn't any idea who he was.
No, it was embarrassing, actually, but he was a really pleasant guy.
Yeah?
He was recording an album in the same studio, and he had this song that he needed someone to sing with him. And he asked me, and I was only too delighted to do it.
But that wasn't the only famous star you worked with in the States, was it?
No. There was Lance Lakatoff.
But you had heard of him?
Yes. He's a bit of a hero of mine, in fact.
And you were in his TV series?
Yes.
And what was that like?
It was a really good experience. I hadn't done anything like that before. And they filmed us for 3 or 4 days, and that was the end of it. Or so I thought. But they'd made some mistakes, which was such a shame, because I had to go back to the USA.
Oh.
I came home to England, and then they phoned up and said they had some bad camera work, etc., and I had to fly all the way back and do it again.
Actually, in the USA, your record did well, but not here in England. Why's that?
Because you've never been able to get it over here in Britain. The record companies never had any arrangements to sell their records in Britain, so it's always just been the USA, which is nice in a way.
Why'd you say that?
Well, it's good to come home and get away from it.
But is it that the company don't think your style will appeal over here?
No, it's purely the fact they don't operate over here. But the company's just been sold, and the new company does operate over here, so maybe they will release the record.
So, where do you see your career going? Will you go back to the States?
Well, not for a while, I shouldn't think, as I have another 2 years at school here in England. I know my school friends are thinking of college, but I'm not sure that's for me, even to do music. Then, my agent has been trying to persuade me to do it full-time, and my parents say it's up to me, but I'm happy to wait a while before that happens. I can still write, after all. In fact, one of my songs is in the American charts at the moment, but sung by someone else.
Well, the best of luck, Trina.
My guest today is Charles Duke, one of the few people to have walked on the moon as part of an Apollo mission. Charles, welcome to the studio. Have you always been hooked on space travel?
Quite frankly, as a kid, it had never entered my head. There wasn't even a space program when I was young, so there weren't any astronauts.
What about science fiction films at the cinema?
Well, I'd seen them. Of course, I used to wonder what space travel might be like, but it was never what you might describe as a fascination, if you follow me.
So, how did it all come about?
It was at the Naval Academy.
Oh, not in the Air Force.
No, but I was a Navy pilot. I had fallen in love with planes and nothing else would do. And that gave me the opportunity to start, to get selected for the astronaut program.
Presumably by then they were talking about putting rockets into space.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how did you find the training?
I suppose the lunar surface training in the spacesuit was physically demanding in a way.
Quite uncomfortable, I imagine.
It's not what you might expect. Once the spacesuits get inflated, it gets very rigid. You had to fight to bend your arms and move your fingers inside the gloves.
And how long did you spend inside it?
Around 4 to 5 hours. But actually the most challenging part was worrying about how to handle the simulator, because we needed to know how to land and then take off on the moon.
I don't think I could have coped with that.
I'm not sure I did. But if you did something wrong, you were in trouble, and we often spent 8 hours a day trying to learn what to do.
So how did you feel when you first heard that you were actually going to the moon?
I suppose you're expecting me to say exhilarated, but I knew there were lots of ifs. It would happen if they didn't cancel the program, if I didn't get sick, and so on. So I stopped doing all the dangerous sports I was involved in.
So you knew you had one chance, and if you blew it, you wouldn't get another.
That just about sums it up.
And when you eventually got there, what impact did it have on you, landing on the moon, I mean?
When we saw the moon for the first time from about 1,500 meters, we recognized the landmarks, but as we got closer, we saw that the spot we were going to land on was very rough, big rocks and craters, so we panicked a bit. And the more we tried to maneuver and the closer we got, the more moon dust we blew out.
But you landed safely?
Eventually, yeah. We were 6 hours late, so when we touched down, we erupted in enthusiasm. We shook hands and hugged each other.
Not an easy feat in spacesuits.
No, indeed. But after that, we had to rest for a certain period. We got outside for the very first time.
You must have been terrified.
We had no sense of fear about stepping off the ladder onto the moon. We just jumped off and started bouncing around like lambs in a field in springtime.
And when you saw the lunar landscape, did it live up to expectations?
What struck me most, apart from its awesome attraction, was its desolation. The sky was jet black. You felt as if you could reach out and touch it. There were no stars, and the sun was shining all the time.
And what went through your mind at that moment?
The fact that it was so untouched, the fact that nobody had ever been to that particular spot before, kept returning. It was simply breathtaking.
And do you have a favourite memory of the mission?
Definitely. It was the thing that we did during the last moonwalk. We were about 6 kilometers or so from the base, and on the edge of a big crater 100 meters deep. We had to be careful as we walked along the ridge because one slip would have been dangerous. Suddenly we saw this huge rock. It was a long way off, and there are no people or cars to judge distances or give you any sense of scale.
But you managed to get down to it?
Eventually. It was enormous. The biggest rock anybody had ever touched on the moon. I had a hammer and I hit a chunk of it, and it came off in my hand, a piece the size of a small melon.
A different kind of souvenir. So, do you think we should go back? What's the reason for investing all this time and money in the space race anyway?
Oh, it's the prime place for a scientific base.